Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today this video is quite long. I am creating this Halloween card where I'm doing some Copic coloring. The length of this video is due to the fact that I didn't speed up the coloring, so everything else I sped up just to sort of save a bit of time for you. But for those who really wanted to see a real-time coloring from me, this is your video. If you don't want to see a real-time coloring video, then there is also the option on YouTube to speed through a video. I would just suggest to put off the recording or the sound, because otherwise you will go mental, I think, of the sped up version of my voice and my words. So just in case I prefer to speed up, that's an option. For today's card, when I'm using Clearly Besotted, we don't have matching dies, it doesn't exist, and I don't like fussy cutting, and then I mean the fussy cutting with the wide border around, which makes the images stand out a bit more. That's what I like. I don't really like doing it. Okay, so that's why I always buy matching dies if I can. In this case, you can't. So I prefer, when doing some Clearly Besotted coloring and cards, to just make it a one-layer card. So therefore I made that mask using my post-it notes. These are full stick post-it notes, which are really handy, and you can reuse them if you're not oversaturating it with inks to get a nice gradient background or anything like that. So I just keep it on the back of my stamp set. Now for the coloring, and this will take a while. There are only a few images, but as you can see, it's quite a large pumpkin and all those things. Let's do that. So this paper is Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, and I will just start with saying that when I started doing Copic coloring, because that's a question that I often get, I used Nina. And there are some color families, or depending on the Copic combinations you have, and in the beginning you probably won't have them all or a lot or anything like that, it might be really difficult to get the blend going, and with the Nina I experienced some bleeding. Now I colored afterwards when I got used to my markers. I colored for quite a long time on Nina, so I'm actually totally not against the paper at all, because I had a lot of fun. I created lots of cards with them. But if you're struggling with Nina or with any other paper, this paper I'm using lately, and it has been since the end of 2020, so I'm almost using it for a year now. It really helps me. And the most important thing that it does is it helps me when I need to add more layers to get the blend that I want. It doesn't get as easy oversaturated as, for example, Nina. I cannot speak about a lot of papers because I only used Nina before, and now I'm using this. There was a moment where I tried DPC, I think it's called, and I just didn't like it. There is something, every paper has its own properties, and also it's like the color of white. There are so many colors white, and it's funny when I'm talking to my boyfriend, he doesn't get it. But when I'm making a card and I use this paper and I have the outline due to using dies, and then I match this paper next to Nina, this one is way wider than Nina. Nina is more of a yellowish white. And it doesn't always seem like that, but there are so many different kind of whites. And that's the same with the paper and the way you can color on them, or the way your colors will be represented. Because the other paper that I previously mentioned that I didn't choose afterwards, I tried it, I have a whole pack of it, and I'm not using it. It's a shame, but I went from Nina towards that paper because Nina was really hard to get in Europe. Just in case you are searching for Nina, Carte Nouveau is one of the shops in Europe that is selling the packs. Of course, from time to time they have to restock it, so just be patient, they will get it for you, but that's handy to know. I went from Nina towards the DPC, I think, just because I couldn't get Nina, and I was being really panicking because, well, we need paper to color on. So I tried the other one, and there the colors were really dull, in my opinion, compared to the colors that I got on Nina. So I didn't like the paper, and I stopped right there. That was the end of that paper. And then I asked around, and they told me to use this paper. So I ordered a pack. I think the largest pack is from 50 papers, so you can do a lot with that. I ordered it, I tried it, and the colors on this paper, first of all, are really vibrant, which is amazing. Second of all, you can add so many layers, which is really the bonus of this paper. So if you're struggling with bleeding and you asked me, then I will always say go for Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper. I have red packaging, there is also an orange packaging, but I think the papers are exactly the same. I really like this paper, and I would recommend it to everyone for the ink blending, which is something that I really like doing for my backgrounds, which I will not do today. It isn't the most forgiving paper when it comes to ink blending, but that also, like Copic coloring, it's something to get used to, and I just don't like switching up the papers that I'm using on one card, so I just got used to this paper. But give it some time, try with a light hand, and work your way from there, and then everything will be fine. Now maybe a little bit about the coloring, because that's what we are watching, and the whole video is almost coloring. What I'm doing here, I'm coloring from darkest to lightest, but I mentioned it before in lots of videos. If you prefer adding your first layer in just the lightest color, which is done by a lot of people, then you just do that. If you prefer starting from your lightest and going towards your darkest and going back and forth, then just do that. I just go from darkest towards my lightest and go back and forth. It's whatever you prefer, it's whatever you like best. I think there are so many ways. Of course, I'm not a Copic marker teacher. I'm just showing you how it works for me, and that might help you. So that's what we are doing here. So I did that, and as you saw, the first layer was rubbish, and that's something that I say often, definitely on this paper. Personally, I need at least 2 layers, and often 2 layers might not be enough. Then you just add a third and a fourth. But I recall with the Nina, I most of the time had enough with 2 layers, but once I added the third layer, I had the bleeding issue. Here with this paper, I truly don't have that. So if you have the bleeding issue again, maybe it's just paper that isn't working for you. If in this case, this paper can handle a lot. But from time to time, if you're adding a lot of layers, it can also act like it's not taking the color anymore. Then just lay the paper aside, or use your heat gun to let it dry. It's that moment where the paper gets oversaturated, but it isn't bleeding at that point, which is nice, but it's sort of oversaturated and it cannot handle the new liquids that you try to add. So therefore, just heat set it, let it dry on the side, anything like that, and come back towards it. Okay? Now, another thing that I wanted to tell while I'm watching what I'm doing is with my second layer here of the pumpkin, I started flicking. Flicking also a method that I saw on YouTube done by other crafters. I didn't invent this. I'm just watching stealing with my eyes methods and maybe color combinations that I want to sort of recreate with what I have at home and all those things. The flicking method actually can help you. If you're having trouble with getting a blend somewhere, try flicking. Also, if you're doing a critter, it can also help, and at the same time with a critter, you sort of get the idea of the furry effect of the it's not skin, but you know what I mean. So it's really furry at that point, which is something that actually I kind of like when I'm doing critters. So it's just a bonus. But also when you're doing flicking, like on the pumpkin here, it's a really large image, and if you only have a few markers, it's really hard to get a nice shadow, in my opinion, because you don't want to have the pumpkin all in the lightest color. You know, I chose to use 4 colors on the pumpkin, and with the flicking, if you flick, you go further than just the line you drew in the beginning, you know, and that also helps to fill up the image completely. So that being said, I really like how the pumpkin turned out, but later on I will just help it a bit more, adding a bit more of layers. But another thing that I wanted to talk about was glosses. I got the question, I think I mentioned it previously as well. Just so you know, for your information, I never followed any classes. As I said before, I watch YouTube videos from other crafters, which are really, really helpful. I learned from there. Also, when I see someone doing something incredible on Instagram, for example, an amazing card with some darker shadows and some more contrast, it's something that I tried out, and that's how I actually came to coloring the way I currently color. Because let's admit, when you watch my previous videos, like in the past, my first videos, you will see a different kind of coloring, softer shadows and all those things. It's definitely something that can be done. Lately I'm in this phase where I try to use a bit more contrast, but it's all about trying it out, of course, and seeing what you like and what you don't like. But to talk a bit more about the shadowing and how I color lately and how it changed, as I said, it was based upon a card that I saw on Instagram, or multiple cards where another crafter really went out there with the shadows, with the contrasting colors, and I had some issues with that. Not that I didn't like it, I loved it, but I just wasn't able to do that. And if you're here for a while now, you saw it passing by in one of the videos, but at a certain point when I decided that I wanted to do some crazy coloring, I took my bullet journal. From time to time I show it on Instagram, but it has been on Instagram here, I mean here. I showed it in the past when I did some of this coloring. I stamped out my images in there. So I have this bullet journal. The idea was to do bullet journaling. I never started on it because I wanted it to be perfect. I cannot handle not having 2 pages the same way. Although it's the creativity and the freedom that you have with a bullet journal, that doesn't work for me. I need to have exactly the layout that I need to have from the beginning and continue with that, and I have no clue what I need, so I didn't start on the bullet journal. That's just what happened. And then I decided to use the bullet journal as a swatch book. So I did the swatching of my polychromos pencils in there. I did my distress inks on like little rectangles, die cut thingies, and I adhered it in there. And then I decided to just take the back of the book and I stamped the images in there that I wanted to do some crazy coloring on. I call it like that, but you know what I mean. And I just tried to do some shadow techniques in there just with a pencil, just a stupid, cheap gray pencil. I just tried it out. Why? Because I saw Christina Werner do it before she started on a card. She showed how you could implement light sources and stuff with a shadow study before she started on a card. So that inspired me to do that in my bullet journal. Because I just think about it. If you're curious about that and you're on Instagram, in one of my stories I show my swatches and the back of my bullet journal. I show it. So if you didn't see the video somewhere that I shared here, and I'm sharing a lot of videos, so I cannot recall where I showed it in any of the videos, but it's somewhere, and otherwise you can find it in the stories of my Instagram. So I did it over there, and I opened the book, I stamped the image, I did the shadow study, then I put it on sort of a stand for cookbooks. Yeah, but I'm not using it for that. I'm using it for that book, and I just colored based on the shadow study that I did before. So it was also something that I did while watching TV, just stamping things out and doing random shadow studies, and then if I wanted to use it on a card, I had it prepped. It has been a while since I did that, because somehow my brain already starts thinking about that when I'm coloring now, but I really first needed that shadow study to get going, okay? So that's something that might help you if you are uncomfortable with the shadowing I'm doing here. At first I was that as well, and well, the book helped me, the shadow studies helped me, so thank you, Christina Werner. That being said, here, as I said before, I'm just adding a bit more of that, is it the second or the third color, just to have a smoother blend, and then I'm blending it out with the lightest one as well. So that's how I came to coloring like this. From time to time I do the coloring that I did in the past, which is the same principle, but it seems less, well, there is less of contrast. So it's maybe cuter, maybe you prefer that over this. It can all be, you just do what you prefer, and I'm trying to show you here how I get to the end results in real time. How crazy. So I hope that I'm still interesting enough for you, because I know that this video is quite long for just these images maybe, and just the simple card, because this is a clean and simple card, which I really like doing. And I also find that Clearly Besotted, although you can make the most amazing scene cards with them, it also really lends towards clean and simple cards, and this actually is a clean and simple card with some sort of a scenery in it, don't you think? So doing that. About light sources, it's something, as I said with the shadow studies in the beginning, I really made sure once I started that I had everything with the same light source going on. But again, it's something that is totally up to you. You don't need to have all the light coming in from the left. It's something that you can do, and it will be beautiful. But you can also think about, okay, so the image is facing towards the left, so I'm going to make sure that the back is the shadow side. That's something that you can do. Also for the pumpkin, as you can see, the one cat, the witch, is in front of the pumpkin. So there, behind the witch, I have more shadowing. Another thing is that you can do, because there are so many things you can do, is look at how rounded images can be and then play with that. I will do that for the ghost cat, and I think you will understand what I'm meaning with that. But there are so many things you can do, and it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be, in my opinion, cute, and I need to have fun, and that's what is important. Well, I'm just going for cute. You can go for realistic as well, but then you have other priorities while coloring, I think. So also something funny is that this green combination that I'm using was my first green combination ever. So these three greens that I used, yellow green 17, yellow green 23 and 21, these were my first green markers. And with green I mean yellow green, but to be honest, I don't have a lot of green markers. I'm not really a fan, except for the really light ones, which are sort of a minty, bluish, greenish color. But when I'm coloring green items, I'm always using yellow green, always. I just love it. It's brighter, it's, well, more joyful in my opinion. So here again, doing a bit of flicking. And I decided to do the shadowing on this cat where the back is of the cat. So it is sort of facing towards us, but it's slightly on an angle. So I'm doing all the shadows on the right side, and you will see that on the cat as well. If you're flicking, personally I find it handy to twist and turn the paper, and there are days where I'm better in flicking from upwards towards downwards, but today was one of those days where going from underneath towards the top was better for me. So it all depends, just switch and turn, and and do whatever you feel comfortable with during coloring. Just turn the paper around. I tried in the beginning when I, well, for YouTube and all those things, to just keep everything straight. I thought it was nicer for you to watch, and it might be, but if I want to color like I'm coloring right now, I need to help myself getting in a comfortable position and just working from there. So that's why I just say, you twist, you turn, you do whatever makes you feel comfortable and whatever gets the result that you want to get. So that's what I did. And let's be honest, this stamp set called Frightening Friends from Clearly Besotted was recently released. It is so adorable. I love it. Well, everything from Clearly Besotted is adorable. But I just saw this one and I had to have it. This was the set that I needed. I also bought another one, which I will soon show a card with. But this one is crazy. Also, I am the first to admit, I think I am making so many mistakes while coloring, and with mistakes I mean going outside the lines. For me, I prefer it all being neat and tidy and inside the lines. I know I shouldn't be bothered all the time with it, but it's just how I am. But I don't mind. There is a colorless blender, and that is really my lifesaver. When I started coloring, and I told you before, I hated it. I couldn't get it used to the Copic markers, and I laid them aside for at least 3 months, and I started on zigs. So I have a lot of old cards, old videos with zigs. I still have them, but I'm just not using them because I like the Copic so much lately. But just, I laid them aside, and I remember that one of the first gray markers were the warm grays that I had. I bought the whole package. I think there are 12? No, it's not possible. 10, 11, 12, I don't know, markers inside of it, and 12. And one of them was a colorless blender inside of that package, and it was a lifesaver because when I retried the Copic markers, every time I went outside the lines, had the bleeding issues and those things, the colorless blender was there to help me. After a month, I think, really, maybe not even a month, my colorless blender was already empty. That's how much I used it, and I still use it every time I'm creating a card. So that's really something handy, I find, to have when you are Copic coloring. When you're new to it, it can help you. It can give you some more room to make mistakes and maybe be able to fix them, you know? So just in case, I would really recommend it. It was also the first refill that I had, and I'm considering buying my second refill of my colorless blender. Okay, so now before I continue with the talking about everything where I'm all of a sudden thinking of, here we have the little ghost, which is adorable, and here I'm trying to sort of get that rounded effect. What I'm doing is I'm trying to leave a slight white border right aside the stamped out image and my coloring. That sort of gives the illusion that there is more. It's something that I saw being done by Amy Young, and I'm going to find her Instagram name for you. She is an incredible artist and colorist, and I love it. And she also shares free coloring videos on Facebook weekly, I think, and she takes you through the whole coloring, including backgrounds. She makes the most incredible backgrounds, like whole scenes. I'm really jealous. I should put myself to trying that and following aside her and trying to follow with her how she does it. But she is called Amy Young Forever on Instagram. Also on Facebook it's Coloring With, I think. That being said, it's something that I saw her doing and she explained it why, and it was so logical for me that from time to time I do this. I don't do this all the time. I think it would be lovely as well if you just skip the white edge, but I try it from time to time and I always like the end result. Also, I decided to go with purples for the ghost, and I flicked, as you saw me doing, and I didn't go all the way in the image, just leaving a bit of a white area because it's sort of translucent, and just having that, it sort of helped, I think. Also, I used my colorless blender, it's an option, just to fade it out a bit more into the white area. I also decided to go for the purple because I already used the purple on the tiny accent on the head of the witch. I really like having my colors return all over my card, so that's why I did that. But any light color combination works for this. I think even darker, but if you want to have the illusion of the translucent idea, I think the really light markers help you. But you can definitely use your BGs as well, or your, well, any color actually that you have. I would just use the same color then on the head as well. No, you don't need to, but it's something that I do. So that being said, I'm just making sure to fill up all those little tiny detailed areas of the pumpkin as well. And as you can see here, I reuse markers for other combinations or other areas that sort of can mimic the color, but just by using only 2 colors here of my brown combination that I used previously, we have a different broom or color of broom than the stem of the pumpkin. And I think that's something really genius about Copic markers, and I think it's really important to know if you are a beginner and you are like me, just slowly building up your Copic marker stash or your collection. You don't need 15 brown markers to have 15 color combinations. You can use several markers together with other ones and it will work perfectly, or have 2 markers and you can do a tip to tip and you don't need a third one, you know? There are so many possibilities to get a blend or to just drop 1 marker and have a completely other combination that I think it's really important to know as a beginner or as someone who is extending the Copic combination. I'm always trying to look at the markers that I already have and just see where I can just add 1 more marker to have several more combinations. And that's the strength of Copics, and I think also other alcohol markers, but I don't know the other ones, but I think it's really a strength, and I think it's handy to look into it because it's of course an investment again, and just invest well, I would say. Therefore, when I started with my Copic combinations, I had 3 markers of each. Well, I tried. I didn't have the violets or the blue violets, but from all the bright colors, orange, yellow, I had a rainbow assortment of 3 markers every time. Why? Because this way I had the combination of the 3. I had the combination of the outer markers, and then maybe if needed a tip to tip. I had the combination of the lightest and the second marker, and a combination of the second and the last marker. And I didn't count how many combinations I just summed up, but as you can see, there are quite a lot of combinations with only 3 markers. You don't need to have 15 all at once, because it's too expensive, I think, to do that. And, well, another thing, and I had a lot of questions about which markers I think would be good to start with. I never thought about it. I would have changed up some combinations that I had. I think others I wouldn't, but I'm working on it. I'm drafting it out, what I would suggest for markers. But it's a working process, and I don't think that it will be finished soon, but I hope to have that one day. But currently, just I would suggest doing like me and just check out your favorite people on YouTube or Instagram, and if you see a combination, write it down. Write several combinations for one color family down, and maybe there is an overlap. If you see someone on Instagram, for example, it's something that I want to encourage you on. If you see someone on Instagram creating with the most gorgeous combinations, you cannot do anything wrong by asking them which colors they used. It's something that in the beginning I was afraid of, because you start on Instagram and you're new to the whole thing, and wow, everyone is amazing, but truly, personally, I find if you are out there and showing your creations or what you did, then you can also expect that someone will ask you one day what you used. And I think it's only fair or nice if you can share what you have. Of course, there are people that don't have a blog post and don't write down their color combinations, and then that's unfortunate, but you can only ask, and you don't know anything, but you might get to know the combination. So personally, if someone asks me anything, also here in the comments, you know where to find me. I hope that I can help you in some way, and I will give you my honest opinion or my feedback, whatever you want, whatever you ask for. I'm here sharing my things, so I expect at some point to get some questions or and I'm glad that I can help you if I can, so then I will. So if you see someone, again, ask for the combination, ask it. It's like if you want something, you have a no, you can get a yes. Okay? So keeping that in mind, I got to know some incredible combinations via Instagram, just asking someone. Just be polite and they will probably help you. So here, as I said in the beginning, I am making sure that my shadows from the cat are on the right side, and it's a really, really soft cat. I decided to do that because I have already a lot of contrast going on right behind it. I already have the dark hat, so I decided to go for a really soft cat. So there my shadowing isn't as crazy as on the pumpkin, I think. So now I'm just going to fix some elements that I just saw before I was going to continue with the final part of this coloring, which is the grounding. As I said previously, coloring backgrounds with Copic markers is something that's so far I'm not really capable of. What I do try from time to time is doing this, what I'm doing right here, is sort of get a grounding going on, and therefore I'm using really, really light markers. I'm using my W1 and later on W0. Here I'm not really watching the whole shadowing and light source and all those things. It's just about getting a bit of a grayer area to have the illusion of it standing on something instead of floating in the air. Another thing that I like doing instead of using my Copics, because I'm a bit unsure about this, is just mask off the images, add some purple tape straight over this panel, and just slightly ink blend a bit of distress inks. And that will also give you the grounding that you need. There are many options again. But today, because it's all real-time coloring and stuff, I decided to use my Copics. So here I started with the W1 and I just did some flicking, as you saw, really soft fading into the light white area of the cardstock. And I'm just making sure to flick over the W1 with the W0 to fade it out more into the paper. And that's what I'm doing actually. So nothing fancy, truly. I think this is, at my current level, if you can call it like that, level of Copic markers, this is what I can. But we all have our limits, and currently doing the background is a limitation. Well, here I'm speeding through again because this is not important. It was all about the coloring, as I said previously. I added my panel on top of a card base, and now I'm just adding a bit of Stickles and glossy accents on some of the accessories. just to finish it off a bit more. And just to give it something extra, this is a really clean and simple card, so any extra embellishments can help. It is not necessary from time to time. Well, most of the time I'm not adding anything. And I will also add some black glaze pen on top of the eyes of the critters because it's really cute, and well, from time to time I just do that. And it will really help them stand out more. And then that's actually the card. This is it. You survived the coloring in real time. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that I could help you with anything you were struggling with. If you need me, you know where to find me again. I'm always reachable in the comments. I will get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you for stopping by and truly taking the time today to watch this video. I truly appreciate it. I want to wish you all an incredible day, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!